Hello, and thank you for joining me. I am here today with Mike Cassidy. It's a little bit hard to describe his background. He has been the successful co founder and CEO of at least five companies. I know you've done more than that, but at least five with successful exits in everything from you're currently working on fusion and satellites. Previously, you've done rocket boosters. You did Project Loon at Google, which I guess wasn't a separate company. You've done telephony. You have done gaming. You're kind of all over the map, and you're successful at all of them. So I am thrilled that you gave us a chance to learn from you today. Welcome.
Sure, Steve. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, and you go to Burning Man too, which is
Yeah.
even. So the thing that I've heard you talk about in interviews before that has always been really tantalizing is you talk about speed. And given how many companies you've started, obviously you have to do these quickly so that you have time to do another one. Um, and I'm really curious because we have these very trite conversations about speed where people just say, oh, first mover advantage. And that's the depth of their understanding and their thought. I'm fairly sure that you, having done this multiple times now, you probably have some thoughts as to why speed is so critical. Because we're used to hearing that, oh, it's the people who are critical, or it's the strategy, or it's the timing. But you've done this enough times and successfully enough times that I'm inclined to listen to you rather than other people. So why speed? Why is that the thing you emphasize so heavily?
Well, it is the people too. I think speed is great because um, anyone can do it. You don't have to have, a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of connections. Um, anyone can sort of apply speed. Um, and it helps in a lot of ways. It helps when you're raising money, when you're moving quickly. It's easier to raise money. It helps when you're trying to get press. The press is more interested in covering you if you've got a lot of things happening quickly. It helps when you're um, closing deals because customers are excited when you're moving quickly. um, so I think speed really helps in a lot of different aspects. It keeps morale of the team high. It's not like people. I've been working on this thing for 5 years. People are like, wow, things are moving fast. So yeah, I think speed can help. It helps you close deals faster. It also yeah, it helps the whole all the facets of the business go better, I think.
See, now interestingly, what you just described there, those were all external perspective. Those were all, here's how speed affects the speed and busyness or getting a lot of things done has an impact on other people, right? And so clearly some types of speed are going to be important in that way. Other types of speed aren't, right? I mean, if you're really, really fast at writing your to-do list in the morning, that's very different from you're releasing a new product every week, because a new product every week does give you a hit with investors and with PR and with employees. Can you say a little bit about which things need to go fast and which ones are less important?
Well, it's funny you say, you're fast at writing your to-do list, but I think I think it does matter. Excuse me. I think everything matters in speed from a speed perspective. I pride myself on the way I do my to-do list. I have an Excel spreadsheet with hundreds of items in it, and there's just two things in the spreadsheet. One is a date, and another is the task. But what I do is every morning I print out like the top 40, and I try to do those that day. But here's the thing: say something is to whatever, get the term sheet, whatever, reviewed by legal. So then I might fire off an email, where's the term sheet? But then I'll just move the date in the spreadsheet to, a day away or 2 days away. And then it'll pop up again and it'll be there for me 2 days later. So I never lose things. I don't lose track of things. And you say, well, that's an internal logistics or whatever, administrative stuff. But I think that's very important in being good at executing. When you don't lose things, you don't lose track of things, your execution is better. And when your execution is better, customers are more willing to buy from you, investors are more willing to invest in you. So even administrative internal things, I think, do matter for the big picture.
Interesting. So when you So if you're doing this to-do list, right? Because one of I used to have a productivity podcast, so I've actually done a whole bunch of reading on productivity. One of the big failure modes of long to-do lists is the lack of prioritization. And you actually just said, interestingly, that you don't prioritize, you just have dates. How do you decide which things go on there and which ones don't? Or do you just let things that are low priority accumulate and eventually get rid of them?
Whenever I put anything on the list, I put a date with it. And whenever I print out my list at the beginning of every day, it's sorted by date. And like I said, here's today's list, right? So if I ever have more than like 40 things on it, I will just push some of the dates out and then get down to 40 and do it again. But yeah, prioritization, as you know, it's absolutely essential. I think that's where a lot of people, don't do so well. But for me, it's very simplistic, but I just have a day and it gets done.
Well, so to think about prioritization and speed here, do you tend to primarily emphasize and make sure that the things that get done are things that kind of increase the cycle time of the whole business? Like I've heard someone say that you should prioritize things by bottleneck, that whatever your current bottleneck is, that's the thing to focus on today.
Yeah. For me, that a lot of that is very real time, intuitive, and yes, I tried very hard to make myself not the bottleneck. Like even stupid things like someone wants an NDA signed. I think it's easy to say, well, I'll do that tomorrow or I'll do it at the end of the day. But as soon as it comes in, I immediately sign it. I asked my team to use, set it all up in Google Docs so I can just open it, click it, and sign it. But then they're not slowed down. They need an NDA to get a quote from somebody, and they don't lose a day from waiting for me to sign it and get it back to them. It's all literally, in a minute or two after they've requested it, it's done.
Sure. Got it. So you keep yourself from, which is actually interestingly so different from how a lot of inexperienced CEOs, entrepreneurs do it, where they're in the middle of everything, and
Yeah.
often.
But it really sets the tone and the mood for the company when you are that way, because I think people are like, okay, if Mike can respond to 95% of my requests to him within 2 hours, then maybe I should have a higher standard. I mean, the very first day someone starts at one of the startups, we like to sit down and say, okay, let's map out what the project is and what do you think your delivery time frame is, and you're doing that like if they arrive at at 8:30 in the morning, you're doing this at 9:30 in the morning, and it's not like the first day is, oh, we didn't get your computer set up yet, we haven't got your email set up yet, can you hang out for a while? No, you very first hour, here's the project, what's the time frame. It really sets the tone, I think.
No, that's really important. I mean, it sounds like culturally, I mean, number one, you are very clearly modeling the behavior you want, and you're designing your systems, your intake
Yeah.
systems around that. Now, you mentioned, you just kind of glossed over the idea of, oh, RFP, and we're bidding on something. When you're a new company, how how do you establish the credibility when you're still too early in the process to be able to deliver? Because it sounds like you almost, I mean, I'm totally guessing here, but it sounds like you probably start your sales effort, on day two as you're busy buying desks.
Yeah. And you kind of alluded to this previously, is like, wow, all the industries, your startups are very different. And it's true. And it's very hard. It sucks. And when you start, nobody knows you. When you enter we entered the ion thruster market. Nobody's ever heard of us. Nobody returns your emails or calls in the beginning. Um, it's sort of a long uphill road to get attention. But being tenacious, leveraging PR opportunities. My first company was computer telephony company, and we had a very cool product, and we were able to by tenacity, get in front of the editor of Computer Telephony magazine, which was the most important magazine. This is a long time ago, magazine.
Yeah.
And uh, we were on the cover of Computer Telephony magazine twice in 1 year. And that was all PR, zero cost and incredibly strong for sales because everyone in the industry read Computer Telephony magazine. And so they all like, these guys are on the cover again. So yeah, you have to be, creative and tenacious to get attention when you're joining a new industry. But yeah, I think you can do it.
So is that where do you put your let's say we were founding something today, because I had this very
Okay.
strange experience exactly 2 months and 4 days ago. The regional Burning Man event in the Northeast decided to move. And I was having a
Mhm.
conversation with a couple of people, and we said, oh, let's have a party. Next thing you know, we're incorporated, we're a nonprofit, we're applying for regional Burning Man status. And in 6 weeks, we grew from the original 4 volunteers to 190 volunteers.
Wow.
And
Wow.
for me, this was like a vindication of all of my business experience because I was sitting here putting systems in place. I know we're going to need this by tonight.
Yeah.
So let's put something in
Yeah.
place so people can keep going. What order, and this got me thinking a lot about like, what do I think about first? Should I work on operational processes first? Should I be going for communication systems? Should I be going for PR and marketing to get the word out that we're like there were a lot of choices, and having only done this once, I don't actually have any real insight as to what a different set of choices would have been. If you're starting something new from scratch, what do you do like, the first week, first day, first week? Who do you hire first, or who do you collaborate with first?
Yeah. Um, so, um, so I have an engineering background. I have a bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering. Um, However, a critical part of all the startups I've done is basically finding a very strong technical partner, someone who becomes VP of engineering or whatever. Um, and that's, I think, the first thing for me is okay. We got to find someone who can actually really build this, and then together we, brainstorm and design it. And I'm more of a product manager in the beginning, and they're more of the engineering leader. Uh, and then soon after that, and everyone knows this, it's talk to the market. Don't don't spend 6 months building something and then ta-da, and then people go, I don't like that. Um, if you look at all my startups, it's very, very interesting. In each case, we launched the first product within 3.5 months of when we started. And I often tell people, I recommend make that a rule. Say, okay, what can we launch in 3 months? Not how long will it take to make the product? What can we launch in 3 months? And everyone's heard this, whether it's Reid Hoffman or someone else said it. If you're not embarrassed at the first version of your product that you show people, you waited too long. And I totally believe that. Um, and another reason is because, I am so lucky. I'm 5 out of 5 for companies I started that were successfully exited, but 4 out of the 5 of them, the initial idea failed. 4 out of 5 failed. The first company was called Dial a Fish. We were going to change the way everyone orders groceries. We had $1,500 in invested capital, completely failed. But as we were building the infrastructure to do this ordering groceries from a telephone, we realized that the tools available to do computer telephony applications were horrible. So we said, well, we'll just build the computer telephony tool, and that became the industry leader in like 6 months.
Wow.
Same thing happened with the third company, Xfire. It was originally called Ultimate Arena. It was going to be a place where you could play video games online, and you could put in $1, and everyone puts in $1. If there's 10 people, the winner gets $8, and we keep $2. We thought, what could go wrong? People love playing video games. They play poker for money. Why wouldn't they want to play video games for money? It's legal in the United States. It wasn't considered gambling because it was a game of skill. What could go wrong? Totally failed. Everyone hated it. And we did exit interviews. Well, don't you play poker with your friends? Yeah. Don't you lose like $20 or $40 when you play poker with your friends? Usually, yeah. Well, why doesn't you want to do it for video games? I don't want that. So as they're running out the door, they'd say, oh, by the way, the only thing we liked about your product is it made it really easy to click on someone's name, my friend's name, and be launched on the same game server my friend is playing on. I think 28 people told us that in a 2-day period. So we said, okay, let's build a product that lets you click on your friend's name and be launched on the game server. We did that, and we reached, I can't remember, 6 million users in 4 weeks or something like that. Completely virally spreading.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a virally spreading product. It was spectacular. So yeah, move fast. Your first idea, for me, 4 out of 5 times fails. But then you're in the market, you have a good team already, you're listening, you're getting feedback, and you say, okay, let's go this way.
Got it. Wow. Now you said initially you're more the product manager, and your partner's the technical. But you're in a new industry. I usually think of product managers as already having knowledge of the market. How do you get yourself up to speed in that, if that's your role?
Well, I mean, sometimes, and you've heard this before too, sometimes it's an advantage to be an industry outsider. Like when we did the first product, Visual Voice, we built a computer telephony toolkit using Windows operating system. 100% of people in the computer telephony industry thought that using Windows platform was the stupidest thing you could ever do for building computer telephony, because Windows crashes and you don't want to build, an interactive voice response application on a operating system that crashes, every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Everyone was building on DOS. But we were like, there's a lot of tools available if we use Windows. And so we, with a fresh eyes, we said, let's just use, it was turned into a Visual Basic plugin. Nobody remembers Visual Basic, but it was a Microsoft simple. Okay.
I remember Visual Basic.
Well, we built a custom control for Visual Basic, and basically a lot of Fortune 500 companies would come and say, yeah, we're trying to access this, IBM 3270 machine for our application, or we're trying to use this Fox Pro database or Borden data or some database. Anyway, some obscure database, some obscure network, some obscure machine. And all of our competitors would be like, well, we don't support that. And we would be like, whatever it is, we support it, because there's 5,000 custom controls for Visual Basic. And one of those custom controls can hit a 3270 mainframe or can do a Fox Pro database. So we can do it by just leveraging the other ecosystem. And we became, the leading tool in 6 months.
Well, it's interesting too, because it sounds like you actually had genuine technical insight there. I mean, one of the things that's different from you, at least in my impression, is, I mean, I don't know how to put this. You go after stuff that's really substantive, in the sense of it has real technical depth and requires some real skill, as opposed to, I'm going to put a wrapper around an AI chatbot, for example.
Yeah. So absolutely prefer that. I mean, prefer to do something that, whatever is technically interesting and makes the world a better place and all this. Now, all those ideas were not mine. I mean, I started the company and I led the company, but this Visual Voice, that came from our VP of engineering. He said, we should really do this. And I'm like, yeah, sounds great. Let's do that. And Xfire, the instant messenger, that wasn't from me. That was our VP of engineering who said, we could build this thing. We'll let you launch this way. I'm like, great, let's go do that. So I'm good at, hiring good people and keeping people excited and motivated, but maybe I'm not so good at coming up with brilliant ideas. I'm good at spotting brilliant ideas once we go the wrong direction to start with.
Which was about to be my next question, because I've been an angel investor in a number of startups. And one of them, have you ever heard of Athena Health?
Yeah.
So Athena Health, I was angel investor number one. I was sitting with Jonathan Bush across from in his kitchen as he was coming up with the idea. Yeah. What people don't know about Athena Health is it was originally a chain of OBGYN practices, because his wife had had a baby and it had been a really unpleasant experience. And he was like, look, we could take process engineering and data-based decision-making, data-based decision-making, and we can design OBGYN practices that are really pleasant places for people to be, but we'll also run them really operationally tight. We'll use the outcome data to help get better at treatment and diagnosis, all the stuff. And what happened was they got up to like 6 or 7 OBGYN practices, and they kept going around to all these other practices. And frankly, it turns out doctors are not really that interested in data about how well they're performing or any of that. And everyone kept telling him, we're really not interested in managing our practice the way you want us to, but that back end system that you're using to be able to coordinate and do all of could we just get
Yeah.
that part? And eventually they
Yeah.
pivoted, and the rest is history. So how do you decide? I mean, the way you just described it, like it looked like a light went off in your head, and you're like, yes, that if VP of engineering, he says, hey, people need a way to chat with each other. Yes, let's do that. You did some type of analysis there, or had some type of intuition that let you
Yeah.
set yes quickly.
It's an interesting question. Because we did correctly identify that original product sucked in pretty much all cases. And then there was this period where we're like, uh-oh, what do we do? And I remember the one for the first company where we got the whiteboard out and we put these like, rows and columns of the rows were, okay, we have 6 different ideas we could do. One of them was the Windows-based computer telephony idea, but we had other ideas. And then the columns were, the standard, how big is the market? How tough is the competition? Do we have any real inherent advantage over our competitors? But one of the columns for that first company was, how much of our fate will be under our own control? And that was a big deal to a lot of us, in the sense that if you start a company and it's kind of like, all we need to do is get Google to adopt this API, then we're golden. Then your fate is not under your control. And I'm wearing my Google shirt. I love Google. But if you need some big company to do something, your fate is not under your own control. The cool thing about the first company, Visual Voice, Silas Innovation, is we were selling a $495 software product over the phone. And they were calling us. And we're like, okay, just give us your credit card. We'll mail it to you. This is a long time ago. We had 17,000 customers in the period, whatever. And it's like, if one customer was like a real nightmare, we're like, okay, you know what? Sorry. But this product's not good for you. But we didn't depend on anyone. And that was a big deal to us. And that helped our decision-making process. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, and it sounds like it was an Xfire, the one that was the game server.
Xfire was the gaming one, yeah.
Okay, right. That also wouldn't be something where you're depending on any one particular.
Totally.
So for people watching who aren't familiar with Michael Porter's 5 forces, it's a way of evaluating business strategy. And one of the things you want to look for is who has the power. Is it your suppliers, your vendors, your customers, you, etc.? And it sounds like you've kind of internalized that, Mike, in a way.
I sat through the course. I sat through the course like you did. So I liked it. I liked it. But yeah, we definitely want. I really valued it when I listened to it, and I walk the walk when I did my companies. I'm like, yeah, let's not do that where the suppliers have too much power or the customers have too much power. Absolutely.
That makes total sense. So one of the things, I went to work for a company which at this point shall remain nameless. And one of the things that I needed to do was put up a website for the project that we were working on. And I had probably put up 24 websites in my life at that point. I could spin up WordPress in 10 minutes. It took 6 weeks. And the whole time I was like keeping a diary. I'm like, because I'm kind of an instinctive process engineer. And I was like, okay, I want to know what the heck, which of these delays are innate, what's important, what isn't. And what I concluded was several of the delays were not in fact avoidable. And they were all coordination and decision-making delays, because when you're talking about an existing large company, things like the website needs to be approved by the marketing department because we can't use 2 different color schemes because that's going to look cheap and our customers are high-end customers, etc. How, and that is kind of the opposite of speed, but yet there's still necessary things that have to happen. How do you structure your decision-making processes so that you don't get bogged down in, wow, look, you're using something whose saturation value is 3 points too light, send it back.
Yeah. I I don't have a lot of experience with that type of thing, like trying to navigate large company decision-making processes. Um, but I do know a
Wait, you
little
worked at
bit.
Google.
Yeah, but Google's interesting because I had a very wonderful position in leadership in this main search engine for a while, um, and yeah, I mean, I did some crazy things there. Like they have this whole system for basically requesting headcount for engineers and all this stuff, and I was more of a startup guy. I'm like, how about this instead? So I would just call meetings and talk about a really cool product I wanted to build, and just invite a bunch of people. And a lot of the engineers would come, and they'd be like, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." And Google wasn't really, you didn't have a time card. The engineers didn't say, "Well, this is what I did this hour," and so people would work on it. And also, back in those days, um, engineers had a lot of power. That you desperately, your managers are like, I need to keep my engineers. I want to get new engineers. And if your engineer is kind of like, my manager's being kind of annoying, they would just switch to another project. And the philosophy was, it's kind of the employee's decision. And if they would rather work on a different project, then they can instead of they're fired or whatever. So anyway, that there is some experience of working in large organizations. But another key thing I really emphasize is when you've got contentious decisions, and you're trying to sort of work your way through. I mean, whenever I start the company, I tell the team, by the way, this is not a democracy. Sorry, go somewhere else for democracy. We're going to have meetings and we're going to have energetic debates. And I want you to scream bloody murder. I want you in the meetings, I want you to say, Mike, you're crazy. Mike, you're making a huge mistake. Mike, here's 5 reasons why that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I want that. But then at the end of the meeting, if there's no consensus, my job is to make a decision. But the key thing is, though, once we make a decision, I say, look, I don't want to revisit decisions. I don't want, next week or 2 weeks, people saying, let's talk about that again. No, maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but we're gonna waste endless cycles, revisiting things. I figured this out when I was like 21 years old or something. I used to spend as much time thinking about decisions I'd already made as future ones. I literally did. Like, I don't know, I think it might have been wrong. And I said, I wonder if I could just never revisit a decision. That would save me a lot of time. So from now on, I'm never going to revisit it. And it actually worked. I stopped when I was 21. I stopped revisiting decisions, and then I tried to make that happen in the companies. And yeah, sometimes we're wrong, and we'll set a time frame, like for the next 5 months or something, no going back. And this also helps with the sort of the tension between, entrepreneurs are supposed to be tenacious and never give up, but entrepreneurs are also supposed to be flexible and nimble and change direction. And so, but how do you balance those? And so for me, it's kind of like pick some time period, and during that time period, there's no, you don't deviate. But then you have everyone come together and you look at all the data and go, oh man, this sucks. We got to go a different direction. And that's what happened in 4 out of the 5 companies. And we did pivot. But yeah, I think not revisiting decisions. And there's another factor with that too, is you don't really allow this "I told you so" mentality. So you're not allowed, even if we went the wrong direction, you're not allowed 2 months later to say, "I told you this is the wrong," and that's not allowed. It's like whatever happened is past is past. You always look forward. And there's another benefit to this, never blaming who or whatever it is. People are much more willing to say, oh, wow, this whatever we're doing right now is horrible. And you don't like, well, that was Charlie's. You don't pin it to anyone. So it's great. It's much easier to get, people aren't entrenched, and it's really valuable to be able to say, yeah, this is wrong.
It's interesting. There's 2 trends that I've heard of that you're currently embodying. One was there was a thing in software. This was a long time ago, way before all the current stuff, but it was called egoless coding. And the whole idea, and I'm thinking, I'm going to date myself here, but I'm thinking like, early 90s. And the whole idea was you don't get attached to your code. You don't worry about whose code is whose. The job is, as a coder, to solve the problem and get something working.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it has that benefit that people are more
Yeah.
willing to go in and sometimes come up with truly brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
So wow, and we have been going for 30 minutes. So this is our time. What else would you say if people have to take away one thing that they can go out and do differently tomorrow? What would that be?
Um, we we started the talk by talking about speed. Maybe we'll end it on speed. It is something that anyone can do. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of connections. Anyone can say, "I'm going to just move fast." And there's all sorts of interesting analogies you can use. One of the weirdest, but kind of stuck with me, is chess playing. If you can move twice every time your opponent can move once, you can beat a grandmaster. And you're kind of like, well, is that a really good analogy? I don't know, maybe. um, and you just you literally can. What the other analogies, like an aircraft carrier versus speedboat or something? You can just move so fast they cannot keep up with you. Many times we were competing with people, um, like Xfire. Xfire. We were competing with AOL. AIM. AIM was an instant messenger, and AIM back in the day they were doing product releases about every 15 months or so. We were doing a product release every 2 weeks, literally every 2 weeks we would. And for Xfire, which was an instant messenger, we had to boot everyone who was using our instant. We had to kick them off, basically disconnect them. And you're like, it was we hold your breath moment every time. So all these people, millions of people, were running our application because it was gaming, and we would kick them all off every 2 weeks and say here's a new version of the app. And since we were doing a new product rev every 2 weeks, it was easy to ask our users, okay, what do you want in the next 2 weeks? And here's a poll. Okay, I like this one. I like this best. I like this best. Guess what happens if you have 10 product releases in a row where you pick the top 3 most favorite requested things? People tend to like your product. And
Right.
also, guess what happens to the competition? Literally, we had people inside AOL AIM said, you know what? We give up. We're not, because they had a roadmap. Here's how we're going to compete with
Right.
you. And they were like 3 months into their 15-month roadmap, and they're like, they've already had, whatever it is, 7 product releases. They're like, this is
Right.
not going to work. So they literally, gave up, which was great. So I think it can work. It can work.
Cool. Wow. Now I want to go out and do something fast. Thank you very much. If people want to find you, should they look for you on LinkedIn? I have no idea how you.
You can
Okay.
find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone you're looking for
Well,
right now?
well, I
I mean,
appreciate that.
just yeah, like looking for any engineers or managers
Yeah,
or.
we're doing it. We have a satellite company, and we just got some good news recently. So we're working on some pretty cool missions in space, and space is pretty hot right now. Everyone's seen the SpaceX IPO coming, and a lot of other space companies are doing really well. So yeah, if you're a superstar and you want to work at a satellite company, find me on LinkedIn and ping me. I appreciate that, Steve.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having me, Steve. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Take care and thanks again.